with some proof.
Hypocrisy is stunning.
Do leaders mean what they say? Do they ever say what they mean? To find out how real news affects you, your decisions,
Just when Iran took one step in the right direction, its moral police is planning to drag it further back. And once again, the victim will be women.
watch Gravitas.
Welcome and thanks for tuning in.
We don't impose our views.
Did India threaten to ban Twitter? Either that or Jack Dorsey is lying to you.
That is Gravitas. We let life breathe through our show. Gravitas, the informed show for an intelligent audience.
Hello, welcome to This World. Vladimir Amelyan joins us from Kiev, and he is currently on the front line fighting Russian troops.
We believe that world should be ruled by democracies.
I was interviewing you on television a couple of weeks back.
That's right.
And you said, if you really want to understand Jerusalem, why don't you come here and see it?
And you came.
Here I am. Mass shooting after mass shooting after mass shooting. Why this cannot be fixed?
There are 425 million guns in the United States, which is more than the population.
The problem here is Trump has been able to make the argument that this
Hello and a very warm welcome. You're watching Gravitas with me, Molly Gambhir. Here's a look at what's lined up for you on the show tonight. Our cover story tonight focuses on the next phase in the Israel-Hamas war as Israel targets the Hamas tunnel network, navigating the maze of tunnels built by Hamas. Israel's toughest fight lies underground. What is Israel's strategy looking like at this point? Where are things headed? What lies ahead for Gaza? Tonight on Gravitas, we get you the bigger picture as we get you the latest on the Israel-Hamas war, which is now over a month old. Also on the show for you tonight, has the UK Prime Minister Rishi Sunak sunk? Is he looking for his next job? Are his days at number 10 numbered? We tell you what's brewing. The Portugal Prime Minister has resigned over a corruption scandal, the rot beginning from the head. We get you the complete story. A deadly birthday surprise, quite literally. A grenade in a birthday gift has killed the top aide to Ukraine's military chief. We tell you about the sequence of events. A state in India, Uttar Pradesh, is heading for a cow census. We tell you why this decision has been taken. It is day 33 of the Israel-Hamas war, and we are starting the show tonight with some news breaking right this minute. The Palestinian death toll has now exceeded 10,596. Of this, 74% are children, women and elderly people. The death toll, including 88 staff members of the UNRWA, of the United Nations Relief and Works Agency. More than 2,000 people are still reportedly trapped under the debris from the destroyed homes, and the number of injured people exceeding 26,000. Meanwhile, the Israeli Foreign Minister, Eli Cohen, has described Israel's war to wipe out Hamas as the war of the free world.
This is not just the war of the state of Israel. This is the war of the free world. We need to win this war in order to ensure that the West will not be next. Since terrorism, it's like a cancer.
Meanwhile, the Israeli army has released footage of what it says are airstrikes on Hamas infrastructure in the Gaza Strip. Israel has said it was tightening the stranglehold around Hamas. More and more Palestinian civilians have started fleeing south as Israel's air and ground campaign continues. Calls for humanitarian pauses in Gaza are increasing, and today top diplomats of the G7 met in Tokyo while the ministers unequivocally condemned Hamas's October 7 attack on Israel, emphasizing Israel's right to defend itself. They also expressed deepest sympathy for all the civilians killed so far. The G7 diplomats have called for humanitarian pauses and for the creation of aid corridors, but they stopped short of calling for a ceasefire. After the Israel Prime Minister said that Israel could manage Gaza security, the U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken, meanwhile, called on Israel not to reoccupy Gaza after the war. Speaking to reporters after the G7 foreign ministers meeting, Blinken said that Gaza may need to have a transition period after the war. Listen into what he said.
Conflict governance in Gaza, a few things are clear and necessary. One, Gaza cannot be continue to be run by Hamas. That simply invites a repetition of October 7th, and Gaza used as a place from which to launch terrorist attacks. It's also clear that Israel cannot occupy Gaza.
A month of Israeli strikes on targets within the Gaza Strip have destroyed nearly 50% of all housing units. The UN Special Rapporteur on the Right to Housing has stressed that bombardment of housing, civilian objects and infrastructure are strictly prohibited under international law. The Palestinian Health Minister, meanwhile, has pressed for urgent aid for Gaza. She called for the permission to bring urgent humanitarian as well as health supplies as the war claims more lives.
ونطالب بالسماح بشكل عاجل بإدخال الإمدادات الإنسانية والصحية للقطاع، وخاصة الوقود لتشغيل مولدات الكهرباء في المستشفيات، وهذه بشكل عاجل وطارئ وعاجل جدا. وكذلك السماح لدخول الفرق الطبية المتطوعة لمساندة الكوادر الصحية في علاج المرضى والجرحى.
And the nightmare continues. Videos showing bodies being transported away on horse-pulled carts. Let's now talk about the tunnel warfare underway in the Gaza Strip. The battle has gone underground into the notorious tunnels built by Hamas. The Israeli forces have reached deep into Gaza in order to crush the militant group Hamas. They are on the hunt, using explosives to destroy this vast tunnel network. The tunnels stretch for hundreds of kilometers beneath Gaza, presenting a unique challenge to the Israeli forces, a challenge that will make the already difficult urban warfare a lot more complex. So what do we know about these tunnels and what challenge do they pose? Let's first understand that this is the next phase in the Israeli offensive. Its ground forces are trying to locate and disable the Hamas tunnels. They say that they have entered the heart of Gaza City, the largest town in the Palestinian enclave and Hamas's main stronghold. The chief Israeli military spokesperson, Rear Admiral Daniel Hagari, Israel's combat engineering corps are using explosive devices to destroy the tunnel network. The Israelis believing that the hostages are held up here and they fear that their military operations could endanger these hostages. In fact, the Israeli defense minister has called Gaza the biggest terror base ever built by man.
Gaza is the biggest terrorist base ever built by man. The entire city is one big terror base. There are kilometers of tunnels underground. They connect to hospitals, to schools. They are connected to each other. They have communication rooms, ammunition depots, places to sleep in order to serve as a base of terrorism from which the citizens of the State of Israel and IDF soldiers can be harmed. We are eroding away at this ability. We are advancing and our forces from the north and south are advancing into the heart of Gaza City and operate in combat within the urban area.
Now have a look at this video released by the Israeli army just yesterday. It shows what used to be an amusement park in Gaza, left in ruins following Israeli soldiers' discovery of what they believe to be an entrance to a tunnel linked to Hamas. Another video released by Israeli military purportedly depicting their troops destroying the tunnels in the northern Gaza Strip. The video captures soldiers coordinating an airstrike before inspecting the area. So what lies beneath Gaza? What do we know about this maze of tunnels? This intricate network of tunnels spans hundreds of kilometers, reaching depths of up to 80 meters in some areas. In fact, one former hostage recently freed by Hamas likened it to a spider's web. The Israeli military saying that many of these Hamas tunnels serve as command centers and house rocket launchers. They are often located close to schools, hospitals and humanitarian institutions in northern Gaza. And this also reportedly includes the Al-Shifa Hospital in Gaza City, the region's largest medical facility. Reports say that within these tunnels, stockpiles of weapons, food, water, generators, fuel and other equipment are stored. And researchers who have studied these underground structures believe that Hamas's leaders also likely stay here. These tunnels are essentially self-contained, designed for extended conflicts. Israeli forces on the ground are gathering intelligence on this extensive tunnel network, all while avoiding direct entry. Robots and sniffer dogs are being deployed to locate tunnel entrances and inspect the areas inside, paving the way for potential actions by specialist ground troops, including elite commandos from the Yalom unit of the combat engineers. Bulldozers are also being used to dismantle parts of the tunnel entrances due to the suspected presence of Israeli hostages within the tunnels. Operations in the tunnel network are going on cautiously. So what really are Israel's chances of success? Experts noting that there has never been any other military force that has done as much preparatory work on tunnel warfare as the Israeli army. However, there are valid concerns that this operation could be a prolonged one as it involves locating and destroying the tunnels, especially in a way that prevents Hamas from using them again. Let's shift focus for now. Has the British Prime Minister Rishi Sunak sunk? That's the word being used for him, sunk. Are his days at number 10 numbered? Is he already looking for a new job? What makes me ask these questions? Let me break it all down for you. On Thursday, in London's Lancaster House, Prime Minister Rishi Sunak interviewed business tycoon Elon Musk. Yes, a Prime Minister interviewed an industrialist, not the other way around. The very fact that such a thing happened has made Sunak an object of ridicule. He has become a laughing stock. The billionaire clearly overshadowed Sunak's AI safety summit. The British Prime Minister heaped praise on Musk, even called him a brilliant innovator and scientist. At the end of the conversation, Sunak said it had been a huge privilege to host Elon Musk. Again, who is the leader of the country there? Why was Sunak indulging in such flattery? Is he really that desperate? Is Rishi Sunak trying to secure a job when he exits 10 Downing Street? His love-in with Musk seemed nothing less than a job application. Sunak's role model appears to be Nick Clegg. Clegg served as the British Deputy Prime Minister till 2015. And now he is the President of Global Affairs at Meta. You see, the formula seems to be simple. Take a licking at the polls and start again with the tech bros on the West Coast. Is that what Rishi Sunak really plans to do? Seeing the situation in the UK, the day might not be that far away. Britons just seem to have had enough. The new session of the British Parliament has started. Yesterday, the King delivered his first speech. King Charles was speaking, but the words belonged to British ministers. The speech was the longest since 2005, but it had the fewest number of bills. Even King Charles appeared to be bored. What hope do the rest of the Britons really have? It's almost like Sunak had compiled a checklist to limit Tory electoral losses next year. When polled, 73% Britons had said they wanted harsher sentences for those who broke the law. So the Prime Minister decided to deliver. Sunak proposed 5 law and order bills. He promised tougher sentences for criminals. Laughing gas has now become a Class C drug. Those found in possession could face 2 years in jail, and those found producing or supplying it would be sentenced to 14 years. Harsher laws, longer sentences, all that is well and good. But what really is Sunak going to do with the critical overcrowding in the British prisons? What about the backlog in the courts? How is the Prime Minister going to tackle all of that? It's as if Sunak knows he will not be around to be called to account. The rest of the speech was lackluster, to say the least, and Sunak's only long-term announcement was to ban all cigarettes for an under-14 smoke-free generation. The Prime Minister had half-heartedly suggested a brighter future, but nothing in that speech offered any hope for that. There were no ideas for planning reforms or social care provisions, nothing about the National Health Service, nature restoration, universities or immigration. The new reign was supposed to be the golden Sunak age. At least Sunak hoped that he would be the so-called change candidate. He has offered his share of promises for a better future, and he has received his share of mockery for it as well. Most recently, during an interview for a BBC Radio 4 program, Rishi Sunak claimed only he can change the country. Doesn't matter that the Tories have been in power for 13 years. But the host was quick to tell Sunak that he has a brass neck. But actually, Sunak seems to have given up. At least that is what his actions seem to be suggesting, if not his words. After Sunak met ministers for informal drinks at 10 Downing Street, one of his own ministers, in fact, said that it felt like Sunak had already checked out and is simply looking forward to a few foreign sightseeing trips. That is what the reports are saying. The COVID-19 inquiry has been hearing evidence about Sunak's time as Chancellor. Back then, his nickname was Dr. Death. And why not? It was he, after all. It was him who prioritized handing out economic goodies over saving lives. And now he is being called sunk. His government seems to be sinking. The UK continues to grapple with spiraling grocery and heating bills, higher mortgages, crumbling school infrastructure, and the Prime Minister is out conducting fancy interviews, desperate to secure a job as he messes up the current one. On to another Prime Minister now. Headlines in Portugal's media on Wednesday reflected the shock triggered by the resignation of the Prime Minister, António Costa. Costa has stepped down amid an investigation into alleged irregularities committed by his majority socialist administration in handling lithium mining and hydrogen projects in the country.
Para eles não há problema nenhum, que não são eles que pagam a fatura. Quem vai pagar a fatura é o contribuinte, por aí eles está tudo bem. Portanto, agora os outros partidos não vão querer que seja outra pessoa do PS a ser primeiro-ministro, que é para ir em eleições, andarmos aqui mais numa palhaçada e pronto, e sermos nós depois a seguir os contribuintes a pagar a fatura.
Announcing the decision in a televised statement after meeting the president, Marcelo Rebelo de Sousa, Costa said that his conscience was clear, but he would not stand as candidate for premiership again. This is what he said.
Candidatar ao cargo de primeiro-ministro, isso fica muito claro. É evidente que esta é uma etapa da vida que se encerrou.
Further denying involvement in the scandal, Costa said he was fully available to cooperate with the justice system, tearing up while thanking his family for their support through the years.
Por fim, uma palavra muito sentida de agradecimento à minha família, muito em especial à minha mulher, por todo o apoio, todo o carinho e os muitos sacrifícios pessoais que passou ao longo destes 8 anos. Esta é uma etapa da vida que se encerra e que encerro com a cabeça erguida, a consciência tranquila e a mesma determinação de servir Portugal e os portugueses exatamente da mesma forma como no dia em que aqui entrei pela primeira vez como Primeiro-Ministro.
The news naturally has left people shocked.
Bem, acho que na verdade ninguém estava à espera do que aconteceu, mas na realidade penso que António Costa até reagiu bem em ter-se demitido e que agora veremos quem é que vai para o seu lugar e como é que corre.
The instability that the move brings with it is the immediate concern. People say the resignation will just make the current situation worse.
Toda a situação financeira e económica que se vive em Portugal, todas as dificuldades que as pessoas sentem no seu dia-a-dia, e agora vê-se um governo cair, e isso creio que vai acrescentar muita insegurança às pessoas. Se bem que o governo em si não nos garantisse e não nos desse segurança, porque nós todos os dias lidamos com muitas situações diferentes e desagradáveis, porque infelizmente há muita gente a passar muito mal neste país, e agora de repente o governo cai, eu penso que vai agravar toda a situação e toda a insegurança que as pessoas sentem.
The political crisis unfolded in the country after prosecutors published a statement detailing searches in more than 40 different premises as part of the inquiry. The Department of Criminal Investigation and Action confirming that the addresses searched included spaces used by the head of the Prime Minister's office, the 2 ministries and the Census Town Council. Citing flight risk and the possibility that illegal activities could continue, prosecutors then issued arrest warrants for Costa's chief of staff, the mayor of Census and 2 executives at Start campus, and added that Portugal's infrastructure minister had also been indicted as part of the investigation. But let's just take you back to where it all started. In May 2022, the Portuguese Agency for the Protection of the Environment approved a mining project for lithium. And with the success of the first, a second project was given the green light at the start of September last year. But in December 2022, Portugal's infrastructure and housing minister was forced to quit amid the outcry over a €500,000 compensation payment made to a board member of the state-owned flag carrier TAP Air Portugal. And after that, a total of 10 senior government officials left their jobs since Costa's party won the 2022 ballot. And while Portugal's lithium mines and green hydrogen projects are part of the continent's green initiative being pushed and heavily funded by the European Union, Costa has been a major backer of the projects and an ally of Spain's acting Prime Minister Pedro Sánchez. But now, after Costa's sudden resignation, it will be interesting to see how some of these projects and long-term government plans involving the EU funds will pan out. On the other hand, while the European Union is keen to reduce its dependence on mines in China, Africa and South America for lithium, Costa's resignation has left Portugal in a precipice, calling for the immediate cancellation of all lithium projects. Our next story is from Ukraine. It sounds nothing short of a thriller movie plot. What would you expect as a birthday gift? A bottle of perfume, some jewelry, some cutlery perhaps? But what if, in one of the swankily wrapped boxes, a grenade shows up? Sounds like something that would occur only in movies, does it not? But it actually happened in Ukraine to a high-ranking military official. The war has taken an ugly turn. It was Major Gennady Shastevkov's birthday. He was a close advisor to the commander-in-chief of the Ukrainian army, and now he is no more. Here's what happened. The Ukrainian official was celebrating his birthday with relatives. He had received a couple of gifts from his colleagues. Reports say one of the gifts contained bottles of liquor and glasses shaped like grenades. They were only supposed to look like explosives. But guess what? One of them was actually a grenade. The Ukrainian aide obviously was not aware of this. He took one of them out and began showing it to his son. His son began twisting one of the grenade rings. The two were trying to open it up. They thought it was something else. The official ultimately pulled the ring. And just like that, there was an explosion. The advisor to Ukraine's army chief was dead. His 13-year-old son also suffered serious injuries. Investigations are underway. The police found 5 more of the same type of grenades in the official's apartment. But who sent them this grenade is the immediate question. Who wanted him dead? The police have identified the colleague who sent the deadly gift. 2 similar grenades were also found in this serviceman's office. You see, ever since the war started, a Ukrainian official being targeted like this is rare. Such mystery killings of officials have been reported in Russia, but not so much in Ukraine. Another interesting thing is, many regard the Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky and the army chief Valery Zaluzhny as political rivals, and this view has only gained more traction recently, especially after Zaluzhny wrote in an essay that Russia and Ukraine had reached a stalemate in the war. President Zelensky has publicly disagreed with this statement. Also on Monday, Ukraine launched a criminal investigation into the military leaders who organized a recent medals ceremony. This ceremony was hit by a Russian missile strike in the Zaporizhia region. 19 soldiers of a Ukrainian brigade were killed. The commander of the brigade has been temporarily suspended during the investigation. Are Ukrainian officials really being targeted? Meanwhile, on the ground, Russian media saying Ukraine has shelled Donetsk and Makiivka. At least 3 people have been killed, more than 30 have been injured. In the last 24 hours, the Ukrainian military carried out a total of 57 shelling attacks on Donetsk. They have fired 169 munitions of various types. A total of 13 houses and 8 civilian infrastructure facilities have been damaged. Ukraine's military spy agency also claimed responsibility for the assassination of a Russia-backed lawmaker. Mikhail Filiponenko was killed in a car bomb in the occupied eastern city of Luhansk. And as per reports, bomb blasts targeting senior Russian-installed officials in occupied parts of Ukraine have occurred frequently during the war. Moving on for now, I have some headlines for you. A 14-year-old boy died over the weekend while running a 5,000-meter race. This happened at a high school in Florida. What was the cause of this teenager's death? A cardiac arrest. A girl collapsed while entering an examination hall. She was all of 15 years old. She was about to appear for her grade 9 exams. The reason of her death is a suspected cardiac arrest. This incident took place in the Indian state of Gujarat. Now, these reports are from the last 5 days. 2 incidents in less than a week. Of course, they do not indicate an epidemic, but consider this. They were barely in their teens, and this is enough to send alarm bells ringing. Earlier in July, 2 more Indian teens lost their lives due to cardiac arrests, once again in the state of Gujarat. The same month, another teen from Michigan suffered a cardiac arrest. He was lucky enough to survive. His name is Alexander Bowison. only 18 years old, but is already a cardiac arrest survivor. You see, a sudden cardiac arrest occurs when the heart stops beating or when it's not beating efficiently enough. It's triggered by a cardiovascular cause that occurs within 1 hour of the onset of the symptoms. But why are more and more teenagers falling prey to heart diseases? And why is this happening? Is it the lifestyle? Is it an after effect of the COVID-19 pandemic? What really is going on? What is to be blamed? Often, a sudden cardiac arrest is the result of a genetic condition called hypertrophic cardiomyopathy. In this condition, abnormal genes cause the heart muscle to become thicker than normal. This can reduce the blood flow in and out of the heart. The American Heart Association estimating 1 in every 500 people have the condition. In many young adults and teens, the first symptom is a sudden collapse and possible deaths. However, some may experience chest pain and palpitations for years. But the thing is, such mild symptoms are usually ignored and the condition is not discovered until it's too late. And that is when the person has already gone into a cardiac arrest. Experts believe that such incidents of sudden cardiac arrests have increased following the pandemic. Several studies around the world have shown that even a mild COVID-19 infection has harmful effects on the cardiovascular health. The incidence of heart attacks and other cardiovascular diseases in late 20s and early 30s have become a lot more frequent now. Some doctors say it's not even surprising anymore. On to India now. The state of Uttar Pradesh has decided to carry out a cow census to figure out the exact number of cows in the state in order to plan for their welfare. Our next report detailing why this decision has been made and what lies ahead. Take a look.
There are more than 5 million stray cattle roaming the streets of India, and the state of Uttar Pradesh has now decided to conduct a comprehensive census of cows. The aim is to figure out the exact number of cows so that they can plan accordingly for their welfare. According to the UP Chief Minister Yogi Adityanath, in the first phase, these cows will be counted. In the next phase, a plan will be formulated and implemented to ensure they are provided with suitable accommodation. Chief Minister Yogi Adityanath has ordered that the counting will be followed by geotagging. A government spokesman made it clear that while the government is dedicated to cattle conservation, it lays equal emphasis on protecting the cows that roam on the streets, so that they can prevent any inconvenience to the common people and farmers. The issue of stray cattle has been an important one in the state, with problems ranging from crops getting destroyed, the spread of disease, and road accidents. The Uttar Pradesh government will conduct a comprehensive census of cows in 3 priority categories. This includes determining the number of destitute animals with cattle rearers, Kanha Upvan, and abandoned ones on the streets. In 2019, the livestock census recorded the total number of cattle in Uttar Pradesh at a little more than 10 million. As many as 6 million were found to be milch cows, and at least 2.5 million cows were recorded dry. The same census further found that the number of stray cattle in the state to be over 1.5 million. Meanwhile, India is witnessing a boom in cow shelters run by the government or religious institutions who care for abandoned cattle throughout their lives. There are more than 5,000 cow shelters in India, and in Uttar Pradesh, the government has announced the setting up of a 130-acre cow sanctuary as large as nearly 100 football fields to take care of the stray or abandoned cows. Bureau Report, WION World is One.
Our next story is about an actor who needs no introduction, someone who has ruled over the hearts of millions around the world for decades. Veteran Indian actor Zeenat Aman has been an icon, which also means she has not been insulated from the gossip culture that celebrities usually find themselves dealing with. Unfounded, malicious gossip that can, at times, leave a lasting impact on the individual. Zeenat Aman has been dealing with an eye condition for 40 years. And for all this time, there has been a lot of chatter over her drooping eyelid condition. The actor recently put out a post talking about the eye condition and her recent surgery to deal with it. She said in her post, "I have a condition known as ptosis, the result of an injury I suffered many decades ago that damaged the muscles around my right eye. Over the years, it caused my eyelid to droop further and further, and a few years ago, it became so acute that it began to obstruct my vision." Ptosis is a medical condition characterized by the sagging or downward displacement of the upper eyelid. The condition can affect one or both eyelids and can vary in severity. Sharing a photograph on Instagram, the actor talked about the impact of the condition on her career. She said, and I'm quoting, "When so much of one's career is based on one's appearance, coming to terms with a dramatic change to it is difficult. I know for a fact that this ptosis narrowed my opportunities and made me the subject of unwanted attention. But despite the gossip, the comments, and the questions, I never felt diminished by it." Earlier this year, in April, she was informed about her condition worsening and the possible course of treatment. The actor is now recovering from the treatment. But the fact is, for all these years, there has been a lot of chatter about her eye condition, about her appearance, and that in itself is a part of the problem. And her post has also, of course, contributed towards raising awareness about the condition itself, which, by the way, has also affected other celebrities like Paris Hilton and Kate Hudson. Moving on for now, a motorable road leading to the Amarnath cave in India's Kashmir Valley has snowballed into a controversy. The Jammu and Kashmir authorities planned the road as a major convenience for the tourists, but the regional political parties are calling it an invitation to an environmental disaster. More in our next report.
The prospect of a motorable road to the Amarnath cave is getting a lot of flack from two former Jammu and Kashmir chief ministers. Both Umar Abdullah and Mehbooba Mufti are convinced that taking vehicles to the Amarnath cave will lead to a natural disaster.
It's the case of environment. The courts have always given decisions in favor of saving green belts across the valley. No one is allowed to construct anything around Dal Lake. People living in Dal are not allowed to repair their houseboats. People in Pahalgam and Gulmarg are not allowed to repair their houses. Same way in Sonamarg, so many constructions have been stopped due to environmental factors. If we have to save Dal, Gulmarg and Pahalgam, then we need to save the Amarnath cave as well. It is our responsibility to save the environment. The yatra has been going on for years. Why do we need to take the vehicles till the cave? The main motive of the yatra is to walk till the cave. When we go for Hajj, we do it on foot. Same way when Hindus go to Mata Vaishno Devi. We need to rethink the decision, as taking vehicles to these areas will be disastrous. The Amarnath Yatra is always welcome, but the government can't play with the environment like this.
The Border Roads Organization claim its 13-kilometer road is a milestone. Built at a height of 13,000 feet in the Himalayan ranges, the road stretches from the Sangam base camp to the cave shrine. BRO drove its first set of vehicles to the Amarnath cave after completing the road. Earlier, Union Transport Minister Nitin Gadkari had announced that a 110-kilometer long Amarnath Marg will be built to the Holy Amarnath cave shrine in Pahalgam. Costing 5,300 crore rupees, he said it will increase the convenience of pilgrims. Not only politicians but Kashmiri Pandits have also criticized the move of the government, saying it will destroy the environment.
No one is against the yatra. It's an example of brotherhood in the valley. But the way they have started a motorable road till the cave will lead to an environmental disaster. We have examples of Kedarnath, Joshimath and Himachal in front of us. The numbers have been increased, which as well has affected the formation of the Shivling, Within 10 days, the shivling disappears due to the number of pilgrims allowed. The yatra has to be done while walking to the cave. That is the main way of doing it. The political parties are using it for political gains.
The government plans to start operations on the motorable road by next year. While the government of Jammu and Kashmir has called the making of motorable road to the Amarnath cave historic, the political leadership in Jammu and Kashmir has not only criticized the move but also called it a natural disaster in waiting. They've now asked the government to rethink the decision. With video journalist Feroz Idris Loan for WION World is One.
Our next story is about the debate over assisted dying. While rapid developments in medicine and technology have given us the power to save more lives, what if an individual is in intractable pain, is given an estimate of a few months to live? Does hastening death become a viable and legitimate alternative for willing patients? Or should patients not have the right to end their lives? In the latest, 58-year-old actor and director Sibila Barbieri last week chose assisted suicide and ended her life in Switzerland after the authorities denied her request in her home country, Italy. As per Vanity Fair Italy, the actress was suffering from terminal cancer for over 10 years, and as she was completely dependent on oxygen therapy, which, if interrupted, would have led to a painful death, given the severity of her condition, she had requested for assisted suicide back in July. But her application was rejected. And that brings us to a crucial question. Where does the world stand when it comes to the issue of assisted dying? Currently, there is legal provision for assisted dying in only 4 European countries. Switzerland is the only country which permits the act of assisted dying performed by a non-physician. Elsewhere in the world, an assisted death remains a criminal offence, prosecutable through various legal routes. Like, for instance, in the UK, all forms of assisted dying remain illegal and can be considered under criminal laws of manslaughter or murder. And even though in some ways the cultural conversation about assisted dying has evolved, it also raises a number of questions. Can a person with an illness rationally choose to hasten death? Medical language has long shaped and reshaped how we understand death. In 1968, a Harvard Medical School committee came to the conclusion that irreversible coma should be considered a new criterion for death. But those who oppose any measures permitting assisted dying argue that the society has a moral duty to protect and to preserve all life. The debate surrounding assisted dying is never far from the headlines. However, alongside the evolution of palliative care, there appears to be an increasingly vocal desire for legislations to support assisted dying in selected cases. The debate will increasingly come to the fore, something that healthcare professionals, politicians, legislators cannot ignore. Let's now tell you what else made news around the world. Time for Gravitas Global Headlines.
Hours after a strong tremor hit Indonesia, a 6.7 magnitude earthquake strikes Indonesia's Banda Sea, confirmed the United States Geological Survey. While no immediate reports of damage, casualties, or tsunami was confirmed, Indonesia's Meteorological, Climatological and Geophysical Agency said the second quake was one of 23 aftershocks following the earlier one. This year is set to be the world's warmest in 125,000 years. European Union scientists said on Wednesday, after data showed last month was the hottest October on record by a massive margin. Last month exceeded the previous highest October average temperature from 2019 by 0.4 degrees Celsius, confirmed EU's Copernicus Climate Change Services Deputy Director, who described the temperature anomaly as very extreme. Heavy rains wreak havoc in East Africa. Death toll from Somalia floods jump to 29. The National Disaster Management Agency confirms over 300,000 displacements. Authorities now scramble to rescue thousands of stranded people from the floodwater, which comes on the heels of the region's worst drought in 40 years. Switzerland decides to end the tax exemption for electric cars, whose growing presence on Swiss roads has cut into tax revenues. From January 1st, electric cars will be subject to the same 4% import duty imposed on traditional fuel vehicles. The government had initially introduced the exemption to encourage the use of electric cars. British newspaper publisher Reach, whose titles include the Daily Mirror and Manchester Evening News, announced Wednesday plans to cut about 450 jobs as the industry increasingly turns to online media. Reach said about 10% of its workforce would be axed to further slash costs. The group is already cutting costs by up to 6% this year and hopes to match this amount in 2024, having slashed a few hundred jobs in early 2023. The air quality in Delhi dips to severe category. A blanket of toxic smog covers Delhi and surrounding cities, with schools being shut and the stricter odd-even rule set to make a comeback after 4 years. The overall air quality index in Delhi was recorded at 418. Stage 4 of the Graded Response Action Plan has been invoked, and diesel trucks and construction activities have been banned in the national capital. The UK government has banned the recreational use of laughing gas to stop antisocial behavior and littering. Users will face jail sentences of up to 2 years, but proving that nitrous oxide was used to get high will be challenging since the substance doesn't stay in the body long. More than 10 million Australians were cut off from internet and phone services after unexplained outages struck one of the country's largest communications companies. The mystery glitch crashed electronic payment systems, disrupted phone lines used by ambulances and police, and briefly halted rush-hour trains in the country's largest city, Melbourne. Erling Haaland scored twice as defending champions Manchester City beat Swiss side BSC Young Boys 3-0 to book their spot in the last 16 stage of the UEFA Champions League, with 2 group stage games to spare. AC Milan striker Olivier Giroud's powerful header early in the second half secured a come-from-behind 2-1 Champions League victory over Paris Saint-Germain, in a pulsating match for the first win in this season's competition by the 7-time winners.
On that note, it's a wrap on this edition of Gravitas Tonight. This is me, Molly Gambhir, signing off. Thanks very much for watching.
Israel woke up to a barrage of thousands of rockets fired from the Gaza Strip. אזרחי ישראל, אנחנו במלחמה.
Hostilities have broken out between Israel and Palestine, and the tensions that had been gathering steam over the course of the last several weeks and months.
The siren has gone off. I don't know if you can hear in the background what's going on. I'm going into the shelter now. So it's a very, very serious situation here across Israel. It's a state of emergency.
The United States stands with Israel.
Well, we are starting this broadcast with a developing story from West Asia, where Israeli Defense Minister Yoav Gallant says Hamas has launched a war against the state of Israel.
It's easy to tell you a flat story. It's easy to show you what's happening around the world. We do the difficult part.
This weapon has been banned, but the US, Ukraine and Russia do not find the bombs problematic.
We also tell you why what's happening.
New drug is making a difference in the fight against Alzheimer's. This medicine helps slow down a patient's cognitive decline.
We look beyond the text. We give you context.
Is China preparing for a war in the Himalayas? And tonight, we come to you with some proof.
Hypocrisy is stunning.
Do leaders mean what they say? Do they ever say what they mean? To find out how real news affects you, your decisions.
Just when Iran took one step in the right direction, its moral police is planning to drag it further back. And once again, the victim will be women.
Watch Gravitas.
And thanks for tuning in.
We don't impose our views.
Did India threaten to ban Twitter? Either that or Jack Dorsey is lying to you.
That is Gravitas. We let life breathe through our show. Gravitas, the informed show for an intelligent audience.
Hello, welcome to This World. Vladimir Amelyan joins us from Kiev, and he is currently on the front line fighting Russian troops.
We believe that world should be ruled by democracies.
I was interviewing you on television a couple of weeks back.
That's right.
And you said, if you really want to understand Jerusalem, why don't you come here and see it?
And you came.
Here I am. Mass shooting after mass shooting after mass shooting. Why this cannot be fixed?
There are 425 million guns in the United States, which is more than the population.
The problem here is Trump has been able to make the argument that this is a political prosecution and that he's being singled out unfairly.
Defend our nation. You are saying we could have a cure for cancer.
We'll have treatments for many cancers in this decade, and they're going to come from India.
Downside is that it could potentially wipe us out. But let's start with the upside first.
The upsides are absolutely enormous. The potential uses of this are almost unlimited.
I only discovered AutoGPTs about a week ago and started writing about them. And after I started writing about them, Jeff Bezos followed me on Twitter, and all kinds of crazy amounts of people have been contacting us.
The show where we get you the week's biggest stories from around this world. What is